Good. So, and yes, our focus today is doing quite a lot of sort of twisty type things. So I think they're good if you're just feeling that you need to release tension. So yes, exactly, Sam. The first thing is our loose, easy swinging twist. And I think I might have been saying this in other classes this week, but I've had really sort of stiff shoulders at the moment, and I've been looking for things that release my shoulders. And I think I'm probably spending less time on computer than other people, but if you are spending a lot of time on screen, then I think the shoulders can get really stiff. So as we're doing this movement, and Linda, I think for you, walking the dogs, of course, you can get really achy arms and shoulders. So as we're doing this movement, just have a sense of how do your shoulders feel? How do your arms feel? And it might be that you feel achy somewhere else in your body, and that's absolutely fine. So you might notice that too. So just another couple of times, swinging your arms from side to side. Good. Okay. And then we'll let that go and just settle down in standing. So you could start by looking at your feet and then just settling down over your footprints. You could do a little bit of swaying maybe from side to side. And it depends. You could even close your eyes, although Jan, I don't want you to fall asleep, or anyone else. A little bit of swaying, rocking your weight over one leg, over the other leg. And then from there, just settling down. So your weight's dropping as evenly as possible through both legs and feet. And you're going to start now just to swing your arms. And you're going to swing your arms out to the side and cross them in front of your body. And just keep changing which arm is on top as you're doing this. And again, just letting the arms hang, noticing how your shoulders feel, that's nice. And then eventually you're going to give yourself a hug and you're going to stay there. So give yourself a hug and just have a couple of breaths here. Now, sometimes I find with this one, if you bring your hands onto the bony bit of your shoulder, then the shoulders and the arms relax more. You don't have to, you can have your hands on your ribs if you prefer. You could try doing a little turning movement. So in this, and I'm doing a rather poor job, you can think about your pelvis still pointing forwards, but just turning your shoulders and your ribs and your head a little bit to the right and to the left. Good. Okay, just have a look down at your arms because we're going to swing our arms again and then hug ourselves with the other arm on top. So look at your arms, then release your arms and come to swing them, crossing them in front of you. That's nice. Good. And then you're going to be swinging your arms all the way to give yourself a hug with the other arm on top. So hopefully you can remember. It might be a little bit of a challenge at this point in the day and the week. So give yourself a hug with the other arm on top. And again, you can either do your little turning from side to side, which is quite nice. Or you can also, if you're feeling a bit tight across the shoulders, you can just bend your knees a little bit and let your head hang and look down. And feel really wide across your upper back. So that's quite nice if your neck or your shoulders are feeling tight. And then from here, we're actually going to go on down into a forward bend. So you could release your arms and then just carry on that feeling of going forwards further. Maybe resting your elbows on your thighs to start with, letting your head go. Notice at this point, how does your lower back feel? Does your back feel okay? That's it, let your head go and you can release your arms to the ground if you like. So if your lower back feels fine, you can release your arms to the ground. You make sure your knees are as bent as you like. Particularly if the backs of your legs feel tight. And just give yourself perhaps another breath or two down in that forward bend, either with your arms hanging or with your elbows on your thighs. And then on an out breath, we'll roll back up into standing. Or if your back feels a bit vulnerable, walk your hands up the fronts of your legs. And arrive, that's it, arrive back in standing. And then come back to the first one we did. So come back to the swinging twist where you're moving your feet, you're swinging your arms from side to side. So one of the things I've been interested in this week is how can we you know, feel ourselves in standing, and then maybe do some things, and also in dog pose in a moment, and then do some things on our back that perhaps release tension we're feeling in standing. Okay, so what we're going to do now is come down through a forward bend and dog pose, do a little bit of cat on hands and knees. So Linda, if it's better for you to go down a different way, then just, you know, adjust, you know, whatever works with your wrists. So come to the back of your mat and bring your hands together in prayer pose. And just take a moment to feel yourself here and standing, feet a little distance apart, palms of the hands touching. Let a breath come in. As you exhale, take your arms down and then up. Let a breath come in, feel long and tall. And then start to bend your knees a little bit, bend your elbows, roll down into a forward bend. And again, you can have a couple of breaths in your forward bend. And then from there, we'll go on into dog pose. And you just, yeah, you don't have to, so Linda, just obviously whatever works for the wrists. You don't have to stay long in dog. You might just move through it and come down onto hands and knees. So, yeah, as we know, the main thing to do in dog pose, if we're feeling a bit tight, is to bend our knees. We'll have, if you feel okay in dog pose, we'll have a couple more breaths there. And then coming down onto hands and knees when you're ready. Very nice. So when you arrive on hands and knees, just settle down, feeling your hands under your shoulders and your knees under your hips. And you're going to come to some cat movements here. So rounding your back to the ceiling, dipping your spine down to the floor, seeing how these movements feel for you right now. So all of these things we're doing a little bit sort of experimental. We're using these movements to help us have a sense of how our body is feeling right now. So rounding your back to the ceiling, letting your head hang, dipping your spine down to the floor, keeping the movements comfortable, letting your breath flow in and out. If at any point, Linda or anyone else, you need to come down onto your elbows and give your wrists a rest, you can do. We're going to come into child pose in a moment, but I just wanted you to do a bit of tail wagging first. So imagine you have a tail and wagging or swishing your tail from side to side. And you can do that just by moving your pelvis, or if you like the ones where you move your lower legs from side to side. You can also look towards your feet. Maybe you don't want to do that too quickly. I know it would make me feel a bit dizzy. Good. And then sometimes what I tend to do is that if I do that one with my lower legs, then I'll come back to just a bit of wagging my tail, moving my pelvis without my legs, and see how that feels. And then what I'd like you to do is, I think we need to take our weight off our hands now, is round your back to the ceiling. Look back towards your feet and keep looking back as you rock your hips back over your heels and you come into child pose. So we just have that moment in child. We can take our knees wider apart to make it more comfortable. It's good to have the elbows on the floor. We come into child pose. We just have that moment of, settling, feeling ourselves in child, letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave. And if you're feeling tired, Jan or anyone else, just let yourself have that moment of rest in child, and you can stay there a little longer. What we're going to do is one more dog pose from hands and knees and see how this second dog pose feels. So when you're ready, you can come back onto hands and knees, you can tuck your toes under. You can exhale and rock your hips back over your heels, come up into your dog. Just, how does dog pose feel? So it's going to feel different coming into dog pose from the floor. And usually I find that's probably a more satisfying dog pose. Can you feel wide across the back of your shoulders? That's it. Can you rest through your arms? And of course, bending one knee, bending the other knee. Good. So you can stay in dog for another couple of breaths, and from this dog you're going to fold back into child pose when you're ready. And then from here we're going to revisit a couple of things that we did, I think, a couple of weeks ago, which was a bit of wiggling of our pelvis. So in child pose, I want you to see, and you might want to be more on your elbows, I'm not sure. Can you wiggle your pelvis a bit from side to side in child? And just see how that feels. And if it doesn't suit you, of course, you don't have to do it. But what's it like to just do a bit of sort of side to side wiggling or rocking of your pelvis in child? And then from child pose, you're going to slither forwards onto your belly. And you're going to, I would probably, when I come onto my belly, I would rest one hand on top of the other and rest my cheek or my forehead on the top hand. And then once you're lying on your belly, you're going to wiggle your pelvis. And it's usually a bit easier than in child pose. So can we sort of wobble, wiggle our pelvis from side to side. And then maybe just stop wiggling and wobbling for a moment and have a couple of quiet breaths. Just seeing how it feels to be lying and breathing on your belly. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. And then bend your knees and take the soles of your feet towards the ceiling. And you can come to that one where you start to then tilt your feet from side to side. That's very nice. So I always like this one when I can see feet tilting from side to side. Good. That's very nice. So just do that a few more times. I'm just thinking how, that can feel rather lovely. And do that once, twice more. And then let your legs come back down onto the floor and just let yourself have another couple of breaths here lying on your belly. Letting your breath come in, letting your breath leave you. And then from your belly, you're going to roll over onto your back, and you're going to try and do this, disturbing yourself as little as possible. But I know sometimes you want to have your head a different way round on your mat. So if you do feel that you have got to turn yourself around, that's absolutely fine. So roll over onto your back from your belly. So this is when we get to lie down. And we are going to move a bit, Jan, so I'll have to try not to send you to sleep. Good. So arrive on your back and just see how you feel. So it might be just that feeling like, oh, hooray, I'm lying down. So it's just, lie on your back. How do you feel? In my book, it says settle. So I think that just means arrive there. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. You could feel the weight of your head on the floor and start to let your head roll a little bit to the right and to the left. A couple more times, let your head ease one way and ease the other way. And then from doing so, can you find a comfortable place to settle the back of your head on the floor? And if your neck feels a bit tight, you can always pick up your head in your hands, gently lengthen out the back of your neck. And then settle your head on the floor again. And then bring your hands, maybe your hands could rest on your belly or your arms by your sides. And if your legs are long, bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And come to that movement where we're tilting our knees to the right and to the left. And just see how this feels. And that's nice. So we're going to do a few movements on our back where we're thinking about mobilizing our spine. So I just want you to see how this movement feels now. And we're going to move through a couple of things in our upper backs. Very similar to what we did yesterday, Jan, but I think, that I could do these every day quite happily. So settle in the center. You can either keep your knees bent or you can lengthen your legs out on the floor. And if you keep your knees bent, you're going to, for the next movement, you're not going to let the knees move. You're just going to keep the feet settled. So what you're going to do now is take your arms up towards the ceiling and make a big circle with your arms. So you're interlinking your fingers. So imagine you are holding a big beach ball on your chest. That's it, Linda. So interlink your fingers. Imagine you've got a big beach ball on your chest. And then you're going to start to rock your weight. Rock the circle a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left. Let your head move with your arms. And keep your, don't let your knees move though. So you're just rocking the arms and the head from side to side. So your weight is rocking a bit more towards the right shoulder, a bit more towards the left shoulder. Keep nice and soft in the front of your chest and soft and relaxed in your jaw. And keep your circle circular. So good, that's nice. That's nice. Lovely. And then whenever your arms start to get a bit tired or before your arms start to get tired, you're going to just bring your arms down to rest again by your sides. And there's something really lovely when we've done something with our arms, it helps us to rest, you know, it enables us to let them rest a bit more easily. We're going to come back to tilting the knees side to side. So if your legs are long, bend your knees again, stand your feet on the floor. Come back to letting the knees tilt to the right and to the left and just see how that feels. And so this is this quite sort of soothing, I think, sort of soothing movement. That's nice, lovely. Good. Okay, and then pause in the center. We're going to do another movement with the arms. So again, you could lengthen out your legs if you like, or if you keep your knees bent, just don't let the legs move. So this time you're going to take your arms up again towards the ceiling, but make a triangle with your arms. So you're touching your hands together. So touch your palms together. Imagine they were, stick them together. That's it, Linda. So the hands are stuck together in prayer pose, but your elbows are straight. And you want to keep your elbows straight. And exactly the same thing. We're going to rock our triangle towards the right and towards the left. Again, let the knees stay put. And feel your weight rocking across your upper back. Now, I often find this one verges on the slightly painful if I'm feeling tight in my upper back. And we're really giving ourselves a bit of a massage here by rocking our weight side to side across the upper part of our spine. Good. Remember to let your head move with your arms. That's very nice. And remember to just keep soft and relaxed. Soft chest. Soft jaw. Good. And then do, of course, bring your arms down to rest again. And let your breath come in, let your breath leave you. Just feel the length of your body settled on the ground. And when you're ready, there's no rush. You can bend your knees, stand your feet on the floor once more. And come to tilting your knees to the right and to the left. Very nice. Lovely. And just have a sense now, how does this movement feel? We've come in and out of this. We've done some things to free up our spine a bit higher up. What I can see in all of you is just maybe this movement is a little bit sort of easier and more fluid. We're going to do one more movement where we rock across the upper back. Now, I would suggest now that you keep your knees bent, even though to start with, you're not going to move your knees, but we will add them in a moment. So you're going to come back to giving yourself a hug with your arms, like we did when we were standing at the beginning of class. Good. So once you've crossed your arms over your chest, now come to a little bit of rocking across your upper back. Just like we did with the other movements. That's it. So again, sometimes I find I can't go so far in this one. You're just letting your elbows and your head rock over to the right and then rock over to your left. So feel the weight shifting across your upper back, towards the back of your right shoulder, the back of your left shoulder. And then you can maybe pause in the center and just change the cross of your arms. Put your other arm on top. And now you're going to add your knees in. So you're going to let the knees and the elbows and the head all rock in the same direction. That's it. So it's going to feel a bit easier. We're rocking side to side across the whole of the back of our body. So it really is this chance to give ourselves perhaps a little bit of a more relaxing massage now. Very nice. And this can be a small movement or a large movement. And eventually, there's no rush, but eventually you're going to let yourself rock all the way onto one side. And just have a couple of quiet breaths on your side. You don't have to keep your arms crossed when you're on your side. But it might help you, yeah, just that's it. Have a couple of quiet breaths on your side, and then we're coming back onto hands and knees in a moment. And yes, I hate to drag you up off your back, so there will be a bit of time later on when we come back onto our back. So back on hands and knees, and I'd just like you in your own time to revisit cat and to revisit some tail wagging and see how these movements feel now after doing all those little things on our back. How does it feel to round and dip your spine in cat? And also notice how your breathing feels. So the movements we were doing on our back are very helpful for sort of freeing up our rib cage and helping our breath be a little bit fuller and freer. And Linda, of course, if your wrists are not happy, you can do your cat movements, you can do your tail wagging on your forearms and elbows. So from cat, come to a bit of tail wagging. You can be on your forearms and your elbows if you prefer. And then in a moment, we're going to come through dog pose and a forward bend up into standing. So again, Linda or anyone else, if there's a better way to come into standing, you can do that. That's absolutely fine. So when you're ready, hands and knees, tucking your toes under, rocking your hips up and back into dog. And see how dog pose feels now after all those things we've done on our backs. So it might be that we can feel a bit softer in our shoulders in dog. So this is one of the things I've been playing around with this week. Can I do things on my back that then help me feel a bit more easier in dog? And from dog pose, when you're ready, you're going to be walking your hands in towards your feet. So you come into a forward bend, you're letting your head go. If you want to have your elbows on your thighs, you can do. You just be in a forward bend, all of your weight in your feet. And then from your forward bend, you're rolling up into standing. Actually, if you don't have to walk your hands up your thighs, touch the backs of your hands together and roll up into standing, touching the backs of your hands. So you trail your hands up the front of your body, straight up to the ceiling, breathing in, exhaling, taking your arms out in a big circle. Good. And then have a little bit of a shake out. Oh, yes. And in fact, the first thing we're doing in standing is coming back to this swinging twist, which we did right at the start. And seeing how this feels now. So how do our shoulders feel now after doing those movements on our back? That's quite funny, isn't it? I was just thinking, my shoulders actually feel better. And I wasn't actually doing those movements. Maybe I was just by talking you through them, they've helped my shoulders feel better. So yeah, very nice. Looks lovely. Okay, a couple more times. And then we're going to think about a few more twisty things in standing. So we can let that go and come to stand. So you're going to have just make sure you've got a bit of space in front of you so you can take just a step forwards on your mat. So you don't have to be right at the back. So you're starting off with a little bit of sideways, a little bit of space between your feet. And from here, we're going to step 1 foot forwards. So when you've stepped your foot forwards, you've still got a little bit of sideways space. So you don't feel that you're not like this on a teetering on a tight rope. And then we're going to rock our weight forwards and back. So we come weight into the back foot onto the front heel, weight into the front foot onto the back ball of the back foot. Oh, so this is just, I just always find this so sort of calming and settling. We're really feeling our feet on the ground, and maybe all that busyness, all those worries in our head can quieten down. So eventually we'll settle both feet down. And what I'd like you to do for a moment is then just bring your hands onto the side and your pelvis. And we're trying to feel quite planted from here downwards. So our knees are straight but not locked. We're going to swing our arms, but we're going to try not to move the pelvis. So it's not going to be quite what we were doing a moment ago. So the shoulders can move, the head can move, the arms can move, but we might move a little bit below the waist, but we're trying to minimize that. Okay, and then I suppose we could slow that down a bit more. Bring our hands onto our low ribs and just see, how does it feel? With our hands on our low ribs, can we turn a little bit? Again, from the waist up. And I always do this and think, oh my goodness, I'm not going anywhere. I'm so stiff. So then if you bring your fingers onto your shoulders, I think it just feels a little bit more, a bit freer. Yeah, because the shoulders can move a little bit more. And then we can even bring our fingertips onto the crown of our head, and that might feel a little bit easier still. Depends really how you feel about having your arms up. Okay, very nice. Then we can let the arms go, and we're going to come into a forward bend with this, by bending our front knee. So we can fold forwards, we can rest onto that bent front leg. So the back leg's staying straight, the back heel's sinking down. And then if it's comfortable, you can release forwards and bring your chest close to your front thigh. Let your head go. And have a few breaths here. You're just trying to flop forwards. You can stay resting on your bent front leg. So whatever feels better for you right now. You could have a big sighing breath or two. And then as you exhale, you can sink down into your heels, come back up into standing. Good. And have a little shake out. That's it, little shake out of legs. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So come back to your feet being side by side on your mat, a little distance apart. And then we'll step the other foot forwards. So remember, you've still got that sideways distance. And so you can feel steady. You know, so our intention here, we're going to do the rocking forwards and back, weight into the front foot, weight into the back foot. Our intention is to just become steadier and more planted from the waist down, so that our spine perhaps can then feel a bit freer and more able to move. So let's eventually settle both feet down. And again, just have that moment of bringing the hands to the pelvis and imagining this sort of stability, this feeling planted, weight of the pelvis drops down through the legs and feet to the floor. Can we then swing our arms and not move below the waist? Yeah. So it's this feeling, it's rather strange feeling that we're dividing our body in two. We're moving from the waist up, but our legs are staying very steady. And then you can, like we did on the other side, you can add your hands in, hands on your low ribs. That movement where, oh, okay, can't move at all. It's probably easier, given them, bring your hands onto your shoulder. I'm just thinking it's probably easier doing these ones after doing the things we did on our backs. Perhaps we, can feel a bit more movement here. The hands, fingertips on the shoulders and fingertips on the crown of the head. Just turning to the right, turning to the left. And then release your arms and we'll fold forwards over the front leg. So we let the front knee bend. We can rest on that bent front thigh, or we can fold further forwards and bring our chest towards the thigh, let our head go. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave. Good. And then sink down into your heels, come back up into standing. And yes, just before we come, we're going to go a bit further with this same foot position in a moment. But what I'd like you to do first is just come into a normal forward bend with your feet side by side. So again, it's up to you as you go forwards, whether you want to rest your elbows on your thighs or whether you want to release your arms to the ground. Let your head go. Good. So coming into this normal forward bend, just seeing how that feels. It can feel quite sort of nice and easy and enjoyable after the one we just did with one foot stepped forwards. Now, when we roll back out of this forward bend, we're going to come into a little standing back arch. So you could go straight into that by touching the backs of your hands together, if you like, and rolling up and taking your arms up towards the ceiling. So you might, at this point, you might want to have one hand on your belly. So we're doing this little movement where we're letting the pelvis come forwards. We're looking up and we're coming in and out of this. So you could try with both arms up. We'll just do a few. So both arms up, or one arm up. You might need to bend your knees to let your tailbone drop. And yes, what we're going to do, when you've done sort of, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 of these, you're going to go back into a forward bend. So it's just this feeling of opening through the front of the body and then let yourself go forwards again and let your head go. Good, very nice. And just have a breath or two there in your forward bend. And then as you exhale, sink into your jack. Yes. Exactly, we were going to do that. Thank you for reminding me. So in your forward bend, you can do your weeping willow movements. Thank you so much, Jan. You're obviously in tune with my plan or what felt nice here. So your weeping willow movements, where you're imagining your arms are the branches of a weeping willow hanging in a river, and you're trailing your fingertips sort of side to side around your feet. You can imagine we have those beautiful sort of silvery grey leaves like a weeping willow. Good. And obviously make this a sort of enjoyable, comfortable movement. And when you've had enough of channeling your inner weeping willow, you can roll up into standing again. And perhaps, come up into standing, give your legs a little shake out. And we're then going to come back into that position where we step, from feet being side to side, we step 1 foot forwards. So if you can remember which foot you had forwards first, it might be helpful to come back to that side. It doesn't matter too much. Come back to a little bit if you're rocking your weight forwards and back, just because it can be so helpful and calming. Okay. And then what we're going to do here is settle down and bend our front knee. So we're going to come to our twist here, so if we've got the back leg straight, we bend the front knee. You can come to rest onto that bent front thigh. We're trying at this point to let our spine flatten out. So it might be your hands on your thigh, it might be your elbow. So we're trying to let the spine sort of be long and flat rather than curved, because we're going to twist here. We're going to turn towards the back leg. So bring the back leg hand onto the back of your pelvis and just start to turn away from your front leg. That's it. And you're opening through the front of your chest. You could then release your bottom arm and your fingertips could come onto your ankle or the floor or your shin, or the arm could just hang and your top arm could come up. And you're trying to have your arms in this sort of plumb line. So the top arm is immediately above the bottom arm and your hand is open and soft and not sort of twisted around in a horrible way. Good. See if you can have a cycle of breath there. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. Perhaps once more, and then untwist and let yourself flop forwards over your front leg. Let your head go. Let the breath come in, and then as you exhale down into your heels, sink into your heels, come back up into standing. and have a little shake out before we do the other side. So I'm just turning around on my mat. You don't need to, but so I twist towards you and can still see what's going on. So back to feet being side by side, back to stepping, one foot forwards, the other foot now. Back to a little bit of that's it, shifting your weight forwards and back. So again, the more we can drop down into our feet, the more we can sort of feel steady and planted. And also, I think in this twist, it's a bit of a balance as well. So the more we can drop down into our feet, they're actually just the quieter and more settled we can be. So remember, the front knee bends, the back leg stays straight. We start to lean forwards and rest onto that front leg. And think about our spine. Imagine our spine lengthening out and flattening rather than curving. And then if you bring your back leg hand onto the back of your pelvis, we're turning in the direction of the back leg. So away from the front leg, we're turning, but we're trying to feel wide across the front of your chest. So don't look back towards your back leg. That's it. Good. And then you can release your bottom arm. Fingertips could be on your shin or your ankle or the floor, or the arm could hang. And the top arm, you could take it up. If your shoulder doesn't like that, you don't have to take your top arm up. Can your top hand be sort of soft and relaxed? Good. Can we let a cycle of breath come through us? Let the breath come in. Let the breath leave. Let the breath come in. Let the breath leave. And then untwist. Flop forwards over that front leg. Let your head go. When you've had a breath or two in that forward bend, sink down into your heels, come back up into standing. And we're going to come to the backs of our mats and we're going to make our way down through a forward bend and dog pose again. Or if there's a better way for you to come down onto hands and knees, do so. So it might be again that you like to bring your hands into prayer pose in front of your chest. Just take a moment to feel the contact of your footprints on the floor, the contact of your palms. Letting a breath come in as you exhale, take your arms down and then up. Let a breath come in, and then as you exhale, you can curl your way down, round your way down into your forward bend. We won't stay too long in either the forward bend or dog, so just perhaps a cycle of breath in your forward bend, and then on into dog pose. So I want us to do a few sort of lungy and twisty things on hands and knees. So you have a couple of breaths in dog. And then coming down onto your hands and knees. Good. So rather than staying on hands and knees this time, we're going to be coming into this position. So it's like a mini lunge. So our front knees over our front heel, our back knees under our pelvis. That's it. And good, that's it. And I can see you want to again have this sideways space so you don't feel that you're teetering around. And we're going to be turning now towards the front leg. So as you exhale, you can, that's it, turn towards your front leg, good. So the opposite hand rests on that front thigh, very nice. And your back arm, you can either give that arm away, so sort of shake it out a little bit, or rest it on the back of your pelvis. Let your shoulder drop. And again, feeling wide across the front of the chest. Noticing how this twist feels in your upper back. Shoulders, very nice. Obviously, the balance again here can be a little bit of a challenge. And then untwisting. And we're going to fold forwards over our front leg. And then, if we can, tucking our toes under our back foot, we're going to walk the back leg back a bit so we come into a lunge. And just, yeah, how does that feel to be in a lunge? So obviously what we're looking for in lunge is that feeling we've got this big sort of stretch through the front of our back leg thigh.
You don't have to keep your back toe tucked under. If you're more comfortable with the back foot flat, you can do that. And just give yourself a few more breaths in lunge. And I'm just looking down at the floor, focusing my attention on giving the weight of my pelvis to the ground. Maybe using my out breath to help me. And then from here, let's, if your toes are tucked still, untuck them, because we're going to do this easing back from lunge, where we start to rock back a bit, come onto the heel of the front leg, look back towards our back foot. Keeping our chest close to our thigh. Good. And then we're going to do this little mini sequence, so the twist and then the lunge on the other side. I'm just turning around again, you don't need to, but so I don't turn away from you. So organise yourself so you've got the other foot stepped forwards, and remember we're in this sort of shorter position to start with, where our back knee is under our pelvis, our front knee is over our heel. And we're turning then, as we exhale, we're turning towards the front leg. So we're trying to feel this movement of the shoulders and the ribs turning, wide in the front of the chest. You can rest that opposite hand on your front thigh, that's it. The back arm, try to keep that back arm and that back shoulder in particular relaxed. And then have a cycle or two of breath here. Feel your breath come in, feel your breath leave. Very nice. And then just as we did on the other side, we'll untwist, we'll fold forwards over our front leg, and we'll walk our back leg back into a lunge. So by tucking your toes under, or whatever works for you. And then just seeing how lunge feels on this side. Again, I think it's quite nice just to look down at the ground and focus the attention of the lunge on this feeling of giving the pelvis to the ground, the opening through the front of the back leg thigh. And of course, you can untuck your toes if you prefer. If it's good, have another breath or two here. Lovely. So you could always have a big sigh in breath if lunge is not your number one favourite. And then we can ease out of lunge, so we can untuck that back toe and we can rock back. We can ease back, just look back behind us. Good. So we're going to do, in a moment, I want us to do a lunge twist. But before we do that, I thought we would you'll be thrilled to hear, come into plank pose, which I've not been doing so much of recently. Now, Linda, it might be for you that you want to do an elbow plank pose, and that might be better. So you're going to be organising yourself either with your shoulders over your hands, or Linda with your shoulders over your elbows. And then from here, we're going to be lengthening one leg and then the other leg back behind us, and seeing how it feels to be in plank. We're trying to be in this long, straight line of plank. So unlike dog, your bottom should not be sticking up in the air. And see if you can have a couple of breaths there. I think we might do a couple of planks. She'll be really pleased to hear. So when you come down, you could either sit back over your heels or come into up kneeling, shake your hands out a little bit, bring the backs of your hands together and just give your hands, yeah, that's it, just give your hands a little wiggle. And then we're going to do one more plank. I think, Linda, I'm going to do an elbow plank this time, so it's up to you. So the joys of plank pose. So whichever you're doing, on your forearms or on your hands, lengthening one leg back behind you, lengthening the other leg back, really stretching into your heels. So we've got that feeling we're supporting our pelvis. We're not letting our pelvis drop down to the ground, but we're also not sticking it up in the air. And we're trying to breathe to our best ability. It's not always that easy here. And then we can You can come down. Oh, and have a little mini breather. You can always, yes, sit back and kneeling, up kneeling, down kneeling, give your arms a shake out. So we're going to come back into lunge. It doesn't really matter which foot you bring forwards. And we're going to be coming into a lunge twist. So one of our arms in lunge is a bit like our arm in plank pose. And Linda, you might just have to play around with it. You're not going to do your elbow onto the ground. So just sort of see what works for you. So start by hands and knees, bringing one of your feet forwards for your lunge. And so we've got our front knee over our front heel. Probably then we need to walk our back leg away a bit. And in our lunge twist, we keep our toes tucked under. So at this point, I tend to then plant. So my opposite foot, hands to my front foot, I plant that hand on the ground. Or you could, be on your fingers or be on your knuckles. And then what we're doing is we're turning towards our front leg. Okay, turning towards our front leg, good. Good, and we're trying to feel open across the front of the chest. And this is quite a challenging twist. We've got a huge amount of space there. Good. And then, if you want to go further with this, you don't have to. You let your back knee come away from the ground by really stretching your heel away from you. And that's when you might need your hand on the floor. So just see, Linda, I don't want you to put strain on your wrist. If that's okay, you can then reach your arm in the opposite, your top arm in the opposite direction to your heel. So you've got this long diagonal from your back heel through to your fingertips. And you're trying to breathe here. Good. Very nice. And then, yes, you make your way down. And do your easing out of lunge again. So when you untuck your back toes and you rock back, look back behind you, just let your shoulders soften, let your neck lengthen out. Good. And then we'll try the same thing on the other side. So again, I'm just swiveling around so I can turn towards you. You don't need to. So the other foot is going to step forwards. We want to organise ourselves so that knee is over our heel. We may need to tuck our toes under, walk our back leg away from us a bit more to come into, I say, comfortable lunge, if lunge could ever be comfortable. And then again, if it's possible, comfortable for you, planting the opposite hand to the front foot on the floor. And we're doing that turning movement. So our hand can come onto the back of our pelvis. We're turning towards our front leg. This is quite tricky. There's not a huge amount of space there, particularly if you ate your dinners before class. Turning towards your front leg. If you want to go further, then with your back toes tucked under, you're stretching your heel away from you, letting your back knee come off the ground. That's it, Kayla. And then you can reach your top arm in the opposite direction to your back heel. So you've got this long length, long diagonal length from your back heel through to your fingers. You see if you can have a cycle of breath there. Good. And then you can just, yes, untwist, untuck your back toe, ease back into your, yes, into your easing back. Yes, let's just for a moment, let's see. We're going to come up, just come into kneeling and maybe give your hands all up here, give your hands a little shake out. I just want us to come up into standing. You are going to get to lie down in a moment. And just do quite a sort of quiet balance in standing, if such a thing is possible. So one last time, we'll go through dog pose, forward bend, rolling up into a standing back arch, if you like, and then we'll come into, yes, into a sort of quiet balance. So when you're ready, coming into dog pose, it might be quite a nice thing in dog pose now. After, yes, exactly, Jan, if you feel like drawn to doing any of your one-leg dogs, you could do. But after those lunge twists, it just might be really nice to be in dog pose, which is sort of a quiet, comfortable, familiar, and that lunge twist makes dog feel easy. Maybe another cycle of breath in dog. Let your breath come in. Let your breath leave. And then slowly walking your hands in towards your feet, coming into your forward bend. Touching the backs of your hands together, rolling up into standing. And again, if you like, it might be quite nice after those lunges to come into your standing back arch again. So again, you could have both arms up or one hand on your belly. So we're trying to make this connection that if we're looking up, if we're coming into a standing back arch, our pelvis needs to move forwards. And to help our pelvis move forwards, for some of us, we might need to bend our knees. And let me see, yes, you may just, before we come into a balance, you may just either want to go back into a forward bend after that, or just do a little bit of wiggling your standing, wiggling your pelvis from side to side, which could be quite nice. Good. So that's it. Let's just settle in standing. So how does it feel? Look down at your feet. Hip width, a little distance apart. And then stop looking at your feet, come to a little bit of swaying from side to side. Let your arms hang, so sort of give away your arms. You can close your eyes if you like. And as you're swaying from side to side, just you're going to make a choice about which foot you stand on first. So opening your eyes now and taking your weight into your chosen leg. And you're going to reach that arm up towards the ceiling. Good. That's nice. And what we're going to do from here is we're going to shift our weight into our chosen foot. And we're going to then catch the foot or the trouser leg of our other foot, this one here. So it's challenging to catch the foot. You can catch your trouser leg, or yes, if you have a belt to hand, you can use a belt. Good. If you feel wobbly, then move towards a wall. So you can have your fingertips on a wall. Good. And then from here, once you've caught your foot, then bring your hand down onto your breastbone. And just see if you can let yourself be quiet here. And then it's really up to you. You can stay here. But if you wanted to, if you're feeling a little bit energetic still, you could try the variation of the balance where you then reach your foot back behind you and your arm in front of you, but make sure you still sort of have this intention to be sort of quiet and focused. And if, like me, you're sort of wobbling, very nice, then you might need to come back and try again. So wherever you are in your balance, can you feel one more cycle of breath move through you? Good. Very nice. And then, yes, come down. Have a little bit of a shake out. And then again, that settling. So from the ground up. So looking at your feet. And then stop looking at your feet, bringing your gaze forwards. We know which foot we're going to stand on now. So we can start to bring our weight into that foot. We can take the other arm up. So as we're shifting our weight into our second standing foot now, we let the foot we stood on become light on the floor, and we can catch our foot, our ankle, use a belt, catch our trouser leg. Good. And once you've caught your leg, however you're going to do it, then bring your hand onto your breastbone and just see if you can sort of settle here quietly. And if, like me, you're on your sort of less steady second foot, it might be a little bit more wobbly here. And again, it's up to you. You can stay here just sort of quietly with your hand on your breastbone, or you can reach your arm forwards, reach your leg back, and see if you can find, and again, even a quiet place in this balance.
I've got this feeling of reaching forwards and back. And then feeling a cycle of breath move through us. Feel the breath come in, feel the breath leave. Good. Well done. Come back down. Have a little shake out. We're just going to very briefly, and you will get to lie down. Come back to this one, just our loose swinging twist. So we've done this a couple of times through the class. I just wanted you to see, how does this feel now? Good, letting the arms swing from side to side, letting the feet move, feeling the whole of yourself in movement. Very nice. And then one last thing before we lie down. I just want you to settle in standing. And we're going to bring our attention to our breathing. So again, it might be that, you look down at your feet, you settle your feet. And then you can either bring one hand to your belly and one hand to your chest, or you can bring your hands to your low ribs. Or you could have both hands on your belly, but just something that helps you, the hands on your body, somewhere that helps you connect with your breathing. And close your eyes. If it's helpful to sway a little bit from side to side, that's fine. With your eyes closed, just perhaps for 2 or 3 cycles of breath, see if you can feel the flow of your breath through your body in standing. And if you're swaying, you might find that you need to make those movements smaller and smaller, so that perhaps you can become more and more aware of that sort of inner movement of your breath. So feeling the inhalation filling you, feeling the exhalation emptying you out, softening you. So one more cycle of breath, letting the breath come in, letting the breath leave. And then you're going to make your way to lying down. And you can put some warm things on now. We are going to do just a couple of little things here. I'd very much like us to do a floor twist. It might be that you need to have a cushion or so to hand here. But first of all, come to lie on your back. And just, arrive on your back. If you think you might want a cushion, have a cushion to hand. So arriving on your back, and just again this sense of, how does it feel? Is it that, that great pleasure to be lying down? So what I'd like you to do is, once you've arrived on your back, and maybe you just take a little moment to settle, and if there's anything you particularly feel drawn to doing. And then I'd like you to come to one of those, a couple of the little movements we did when we were lying down earlier. So the first one is just that feeling the weight of your head on the floor, and then letting your head roll to the right and to the left. And from rolling your head to the right and to the left, find a comfortable place to settle the back of your head on the floor, the centre of the back of your head on the floor. And then if your knees are bent and your feet are standing on the floor, if they're not, bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And come to letting your knees tilt to the right and to the left. You've got your cushions right there ready, Linda, that's good. So let your knees tilt a little bit to the right and a little bit to the left. Good. And then from here, we're going to come into our floor twist. And this is sort of this way of going into it. It's really helps me. So you're going to fold your knees into your chest, which is sort of obvious. But once you've folded your knees into your chest, you're then going to, yeah, you can do a little bit of rocking there, Emma, that's nice. But before we do the floor twist, you're going to take your legs up to the ceiling and give them a shake out. And I sort of find if I do this, yes, and arms as well, Kayla, that's nice. Yeah, so give your arms and legs a shake out and then fold your knees back into your chest. And then we're going to do our floor twist. So you're going to bring one arm around to support the back of your legs or the side of your legs, and the other arm's going to come out on the floor at shoulder height. So you want your cushions, whichever way your legs are going to the floor, they're going, so the arm that's on the floor, your legs are going to go in the opposite direction towards the floor on the other side. So yeah, have your cushions on that side. And so as you exhale, just slowly, keeping your shoulders settled on the floor, slowly take your legs down towards the floor on the other side. And I tend to, at the moment, I tend to keep my arms supporting under my legs all the time. And, you know, if especially if you don't have cushions, that's nice. Good. And then just give yourself a few breaths in that floor twist. I mean, see how it feels. And I do find some days I don't want to stay there. And that's absolutely fine. You can go down, you can have a little taste of how it is. You can come back. But if you're okay there, we just maybe have another couple of cycles of breath there. Can be useful to have a big sighing breath. Or it could be that you're just feeling the flow of your natural breath. Feeling the breath flow in, feeling the breath flow out. So let your knees come back to the center now. And swap your arms and your cushions over. Yes, and you might even take your legs back up to the ceiling. I do tend to do that between sides. Sorry, I meant to say that. And then that's it. And then going over to the other side. So remember to bring the other arm down onto the floor. That shoulder stays settled. You support your knees as they move down to the other side. Good. Very nice. Sometimes you want to have your cushion in between your knees. That's another option. Big sighing breath if that's helpful. And then maybe a couple of quiet breaths. Again, if being on this side of the twist doesn't feel great for any reason, you don't need to stay there. And then in your own time, maybe after another cycle of breath, you're going to let your knees come back to the center. And then just let yourself settle quietly on your back. So we're just going to settle quietly for maybe half a dozen cycles of breaths. So however, yes, if you've got cushions and you want to put them under the backs of your knees, that could be quite nice. So just settling yourselves down. Maybe resting your hands on the front of your body or by your sides. And feeling the movement of your breath through your body. Feeling the breath come in, feeling the breath leave you. I'm going to ring the singing bowl now and then I have to go. But if you want to stay lying for a little bit longer, then you're very welcome. So don't feel that you need to get up now. But yes, I just have to leave a little bit more quickly this evening than sometimes. So thank you, and just take your time to come back round. It's really lovely to see you. I'm just going to disappear now, but carry on lying if you like.